What's up, RotoBallers? I'm Pierre. I'm here to help you with Week 9 lineup decisions at the wide receiver position. So go ahead and check out the running back video as soon as you're done here and you get advice there. I'm going to talk about some must starts and sits at wide receiver. You got some of these set and forgets, hopefully enough that you don't need to make too many tough decisions, but you got injuries, you got buys, and there's just some guys you're not sure about. So I'm going to break down the matchups to let you know who I'm feeling and who I'm fading. So let's start with the first one, and my boy Jaylen Waddle here from Miami. Now, you look at it last week, as soon as Devontae Parker came back, he led the team in receiving, and Waddle only 4 catches for 29 yards. That should strike a little bit of fear in your heart. And you think, okay, well, Waddle was getting all these looks when, of course, Will Fuller out. Will Fuller's always out. And then Devontae Parker missed those 3 games. And so you think, well, now Waddle's time is up. Maybe I should have sold him. But not so fast, because if you look at the box score, Jaylen Waddle still got 12 targets. Now, he only connected on 4 of them, but you also have to consider the opponent was the best defense in the league, and that's Buffalo. So it just so happened that Parker got them and Waddle didn't. All right, now it's not always that simple, but the fact is Waddle has been averaging over 7 targets per game in his rookie year. The Tua to Waddle connection is real since Tua has been coming back. He's been peppering Waddle with targets. It did happen last week. They didn't connect. But you know what? It's a slightly better matchup this week going against Houston, and Houston gives up the 4th highest yards per target. So if you're looking at even 8 targets, which again, that's an average game for Waddle. Okay, so he could go easily for 70 plus yards if you do the math there, because, well, Texans are averaging 9.1 yards per target given up. Okay, so Miami is going to have a much easier time on offense. We know that. Waddle, I think, will be fine. Will Fuller, of course, still out. And this is a team that, well, you got to hope that maybe they play a little bit better, a little bit more loose now that all of the drama has mostly subsided. The trade deadline is over. Tua, he's been playing pretty well. You have to give him credit. Hopefully, he plays a little bit more relaxed. Just maybe the vibe around the team changes. It can't get any worse. Hopefully, it gets better. I say that, of course, being a Dolphin fan. All right, let's keep going now. Speaking of the Bills, Emmanuel Sanders, also a guy that totally disappointed, let you down last week. Let me down too. Thought he was in store for a big game, and he didn't. It was Cole Beasley instead. And now you worry, okay, is it a Beasley week again? Is it a Sanders week? Am I going to know which guy to play? Well, I think you could probably play them both because they're going against Jacksonville. They're going to have their way here. Look, Sanders did at least get 4 targets. That's not a lot. Again, just didn't connect for whatever reason. So I think it'll be fine to put him back in your lineup. This is such a smash spot. You pretty much have to. He's a guy who's been delivering kind of that low end wide receiver 3 value. But again, if you're looking for a wide receiver 3, filling in for the bye week, somebody to flex out, Sanders, you just can't go away from him, and don't necessarily, switch to Beasley instead. Again, I think they're probably both startable, but in this particular matchup, on the outside here, I do like Sanders a little bit more. And then Chase Claypool, again, I'm going with a theme here of guys that didn't do much last week, even though they were expected to. So I'm going to say go back to the well with Claypool. Again, he's a guy who's very hit or miss, not necessarily getting that steady target share. He should be, because Juju is out for the year, and there's just not a lot of other options in Pittsburgh. Big Ben, we know, is not vintage Big Ben, not even close to that. But he can still sling it every once in a while, connect on a deep pass. And Claypool, he's got the kind of athleticism that he doesn't necessarily need that volume, right? He's more of a big play guy. So there's a team that gives up a lot of big plays to wide receivers. It's Chicago, their opponent this Monday night. And so I did mention in the other video, I don't expect a lot of scoring necessarily in that game, but Pittsburgh is going to score more than Chicago. I would bet on that. And at wide receiver, look, Chicago's given up over 200 yards a game to wide receivers in 4 out of their 8 games played. Half the time, receivers going for 200 plus, just receivers. And last week gave up 275 yards to the Niners, okay? So this is a team that has a habit of giving up big plays to wide receiver. I have a good feeling that Claypool will hit on one. So I say you stick him in there and hope for the best. What about must sits? Now here's a name. I know I'm going to draw a few comments here for this one. Look, Mike Williams, you could say, well, it's just a couple down games. But let's look a little bit deeper. So 2 catches for 27 yards, 2 catches for 19 yards. That's just not just a down game. That is really, really bad. That's giving you nothing from a fantasy standpoint. And yeah, you could say, well, the Patriots, that's a good defense. It's a bad matchup. Okay, this is actually a worse matchup going against Philadelphia. Big play, Darius Slay is going to be on Mike Williams. Mike Williams, of course, playing the outside receiver. Keenan Allen primarily residing in the slot. Darius Slay is the reason why the Eagles are a top 5 defense in limiting fantasy points to wide receivers. Okay, so it's not a good sign that they're going to have one of the best corners and a rejuvenated secondary, clamping down. And you also have to be a little bit worried. Can't believe I'm saying this, but about Justin Herbert. This is 3 straight games where he has had a down game. So maybe it's not just a matchup based situation. Maybe it's not just a slump. Maybe defenses are starting to figure out something either about him or this offensive system. Maybe it's related to Mike Williams. I don't know, but this is something you actually should be paying attention to and be concerned about, because that early season kind of offensive outburst from Williams and this offense, it's not there anymore. Okay, this is not the game where I think it's going to turn around. I think long term they'll be fine. I'm not saying you have to go out and trade Mike Williams, although that's not a bad idea right now, but still, I think this is not the week it's going to turn around. I'm going to fade Williams. It's tough to just outright bench him because you could always get in the end zone. But really, if you have one of those other players I mentioned earlier who has that upside, I would pivot to him. I'm actually benching Mike Williams in one of my leagues, so I'm going to put my money where my mouth is, and we'll see what happens. And then last but not least, the Saints receivers here. Look, it's not like there was that many great options to begin with in New Orleans in the receiving core. And I'm not just, throwing this out there to take a jab at Michael Thomas. He's definitely not playing this year. You can not worry about, occupying an IR spot or a bench spot for him anymore. But look, Marquez Callaway, I had some faith in preseason. He's had a couple of big games here and there. Deontay Harris had a couple of big plays here and there. Draquan Smith is back. He scored a touchdown. Let's shut all that down, because Jameis Winston was basically the lifeblood for them in terms of fantasy points because of that deep ball ability. And whether it's Taysom Hill or Trevor Siemian, or they drag Phillip Rivers out of retirement, whatever it is, it's probably Taysom Hill. It's not going to be the same. You can forget those deep balls to Deontay Harris and Marquez Callaway. That is Draquan Smith too. That's basically, these guys are all kind of one-trick ponies, and that trick is now over. So I have no interest in any of these players. And look, Atlanta, it sounds like a good matchup. Maybe take a flyer on one of these guys in your deep league or your DFS. It's just not worth it. Atlanta actually is not terrible against wide receivers, and I have a feeling this is just not going to be a high-scoring game anyway. It's going to be a divisional slugfest, really more of a snooze fest, honestly. So you can just keep all these guys out of your consciousness and try somewhere else. All right, week 9, that does it for this edition of Start Sit Wide Receivers. And of course, keep it locked in, RotoBaller, all weekend long. Check our updated rankings. Try to freshen them up every single day for you with all this craziness that's happening and the breaking news. You never know who's going to be in or out. So keep it tuned in to us for the latest.